The release of Ryan Coogler's Sinners has created a bit of a firestorm in the media in the days following its successful opening weekend. And by successful, I mean the movie made back almost 70% of its $90 million production budget in a single weekend. All this without relying on people wearing capes or wielding superpowers. After successfully reinvigorating the Rocky franchise with his hit film Creed and creating a modern-day phenomenon with Black Panther, Ryan Coogler moved to the forefront of visionary auteur filmmakers in Hollywood. They say success is about timing. Well, Coogler was coming off the Black Panther sequel at just the right time, because Warner Brothers had just done the unthinkable and lost their visionary cash cow, Christopher Nolan, who decided to make Oppenheimer with Universal Studios instead of Warner's. Warner's always prided themselves on being the home for titan auteur filmmakers like Stanley Kubrick and Clint Eastwood, who made many of their films there. But in a shockingly unwise move, Warner's vowed to release its entire 2021 slate of films on their streaming service Max, simultaneously with a release in theaters, infuriating filmmakers like Denis Villeneuve and, of course, Christopher Nolan, who jumped ship to Universal for his next film, Oppenheimer, which became a massive critical and commercial success for the studio. Losing Nolan was a huge blow, and Warner's needed to rebound with something substantial. So they made a play to secure the services of another visionary filmmaker, Paul Thomas Anderson. Warner's agreed to fund his adaptation of Thomas Pynchon's Vineland for $150 million, now titled One Battle After Another. They also gave Maggie Gyllenhaal $80 million for her Bride of Frankenstein reimagining. And of course, the final feather in the studio's cap would be Coogler, who had so far built his career and reputation on other people's work. Creed and Black Panther were based on existing properties, and his debut feature Fruitvale Station was based on a real event. A deal with Warner's would allow Coogler to finally create something wholly original, once again teaming with his by now creative muse, Michael B. Jordan. Coogler, with $90 million from the studio, went about making his vampire horror epic, Sinners. Some of that money went toward shooting the film in both large format IMAX and Ultra Panavision 70mm, the first film in history to do so. And that wouldn't be the last of the film's firsts. The marketing for the film went off without a hitch. The trailer got strong reactions. Coogler went on a media sprint to promote his baby, showing how passionate he was about shooting large format. Shooting a black story on a large format was extremely rare, with Jordan Peele shooting Nope on 65mm in IMAX several years prior. And before that, I cannot recall a movie with a primarily black cast shooting on large format. Please let me know in the comments if you can think of one. Coogler also employed, like he did on all his prior films, a female cinematographer. And with that, Autumn Durald became the first female cinematographer to shoot a movie in IMAX, another first. For all intents and purposes, Sinners was shaping up to be a historic victory, and its string of firsts wasn't over yet. Box office tracking forecasts foresaw a mid-$30 million target for its opening weekend, a good number. But Sinners blew past those expectations and secured $48 million in the US and $15 million abroad, an incredibly robust number for an original R-rated horror flick. It also became the first horror movie in history to receive an A cinema score from audiences, and its first Monday box office made it the second highest grossing movie after the Stephen King adaptation It. Again, incredible considering Sinners is not based on an existing property. It is wholly Coogler's creation. There was no famous novelist boosting the numbers here. But before and after all this happened, there were shots fired. Vulture ran an article before the weekend highlighting Coogler's rare deal that involved him getting final cut, receiving first dollar gross participation, and securing profits as soon as money starts rolling in, and not after the studio has recouped a certain amount of money, per usual with back-end deals. And to top it off, the extremely rare stipulation that he regained ownership of the film in 25 years. Only filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino reach this kind of rarefied air. And Tarantino has to wait 30 years after Once Upon a Time in Hollywood's release, rather than the 25 Coogler demanded. The deal had some people in Hollywood freaking out, decrying the end of the business as a consequence of normalizing this kind of ownership upheaval. Mind you, and take note, none of these people were upset when Tarantino got the exact same deal. A black filmmaker daring to shoot for black ownership seemed one step too far for a very white industry, who supposedly prides itself on diversity. Well, you would think that diversity includes diversity of thought, which means reevaluating power structures and the idea of creative ownership. To be honest, I have little sympathy for the people decrying Coogler's supposed hubris. The Vulture article quotes an executive who points out that ownership of its own catalog is what keeps the industry afloat. The idea of profiting from your library of films is a sound one, and something Hollywood has successfully done for many decades, except when they decided that streaming services became more important than the theatrical experience. How can you profit from a library of films that no longer prioritizes the theatrical experience, the very thing that makes movies special, and which is the foundation of a movie's life cycle of profit? Streaming evaporates into the ether of other digital devices and services. People don't value streaming movies as much as they do theatrical releases, because streaming shares the same space in which they scroll social media, play smartphone games, FaceTime with their family and friends, listen to music, and many other activities. Mention a straight-to-streaming movie to your friends, and it's very likely none of them have ever even heard of it. Mention Barbie, or Oppenheimer, or Nope, or Smile, or John Wick, or any Fast and the Furious sequel, or Sinners, and nearly everyone will be paying attention, because they know exactly what those movies are. Why? Because they were released in theaters, and had the marketing muscle to let every man, woman, and child on the planet know it. That is what creates value for your film catalog, not releasing movies on streaming and in theaters simultaneously, where it becomes a lot more tempting to stay home and wait for it in between episodes of your favorite TV show, after which it is soon forgotten, or even worse, straight to streaming entirely, where its chances of penetrating the dull hum of digital satiation becomes nearly impossible. This is what kills your industry, not filmmakers retaining ownership of their work. After Sinners took a victory lap at the end of the weekend box office, Variety ran an article that threw a little shade at the movie's success, simultaneously praising its box office triumph and undermining the very success they claim is positive, by calling into question its chances of making a profit. For all intents and purposes, Sinners was already a phenomenon, with its robust box office, historic cinema score, and strong word of mouth. Its chances of making a profit were extremely high. So this seemed more than a little odd to people like Ben Stiller, Franklin Leonard, Joe Russo, and Patrick Schwarzenegger, who called out the trade for its backhanded compliment. Leonard, in particular, did a thorough job of dismantling Variety and the industry's hypocrisy, noting that Tarantino did not receive this same shade when Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was released, not to mention no outcry from the industry about Tarantino's play for eventual ownership of his work. Is there something threatening about a black filmmaker daring to become a success and reaping the rewards of that success with eventual ownership of his creation? Apparently there is, unless one believes in extreme coincidence. Sinners is an amazing film and achievement. It successfully weaves a tapestry of many different black cultural elements into a genre which historically has shown them little respect. It's epic, moving, horrifying, and is the opposite of your average streaming movie. It makes a lasting impression and actually creates real value in an industry that seems hell-bent on destroying that value with its short-sightedness and lack of vision. The industry needs people like Coogler. Instead of blaming him for potentially destroying the industry, these same executives should be thanking him for saving their reputations. Because when people think of Hollywood, Coogler is assuring that they think of great cinema, rather than the forgettable slop that rolls off the assembly line of the studios year in and year out. People like Coogler, Paul Thomas Anderson, Greta Gerwig, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Jordan Peele, Christopher Nolan, Ari Aster, David Fincher, Denis Villeneuve, Wes Anderson, Steven Soderbergh, Damien Chazelle, Darren Aronofsky, Barry Jenkins, David Robert Mitchell, and Zach Krieger are the ones keeping Hollywood afloat, because they keep making the films that create lasting impact. Maybe these Hollywood execs should remember that the next time they worry about who exactly is destroying the industry. If you enjoyed this video, consider hitting the like and subscribe button, as I'll be posting more content in the future. Thanks for watching.